The cat is out of the bag. Isaac Davis will not be playing for the BYU basketball program next year. Why? We're discussing that. We're also talking about some comments that Kevin Young made on the Field of 68 podcast about his style as BYU's head coach.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The motto is your team every day, and as such, this is your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU. Our today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monopoly Go. We got to talk more about our friends at Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with your friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends if you want to turn heel. Download Monopoly Go now free on at Google Play or the App Store right now, and game on. All right, let's talk about the semi-big news out of BYU basketball, and that is that Isaac Davis, a recent signee with the BYU basketball program, he has received a release from his national letter of intent that he signed with BYU, and it appears that he is headed a couple of hours north and will be a part of the Utah State men's basketball program. Now, let's explain the whole situation at hand here. Isaac Davis was a guy that BYU recruited for quite a while. He and his family were BYU through and through, like true blue BYU folk. And I can understand that there's probably some consternation on that side of it from some of you out there saying that, well, this guy wanted to be a BYU. Why don't you bring him in? I think the bigger situation at hand is that Isaac Davis, for whatever reason, did not fit what Kevin Young has in his mind, his vision for the BYU basketball program. And it's, in my opinion, this is me speaking, it's better for Isaac Davis and BYU to part ways right now versus him coming in, languishing on the bench, and becoming upset with his role or lack thereof inside the BYU basketball program, and then essentially bolting and running for another program. Let him go somewhere where they're going to embrace him and let him play to his strengths. And for those of you who are going to say, well, Jake, he's a very strong player. He's a 3-star athlete out of the state of Idaho. He's got all the talent, it feels like, to contribute at the Power 5 level. Now, I guess in basketball, because the Pac-12 is no longer a thing, so it's now Power 5 instead of Power 6. But I understand the whole thought process and all of this. And trust me, I've been thinking about it since I heard the first rumors about it. And trust me, I've talked to a number of people to get the inside details on this. And I don't know if it was Kevin Young saying, hey, I don't see you fitting in here, go find another program, or him just essentially laying out what the vision was for Isaac Davis in his eyes, and the Davis family saying, you know what, maybe we're better suited to go elsewhere. So, losing Isaac Davis, how big of an impact is it for the BYU basketball program? It is an impact. There is an impact that will be felt on it, but there's this guy named Brody Kozlowski who committed to BYU, signed with the Cougars not that long ago, and frankly, if you were to tell me, Jake, you can have Brody Kozlowski or you can have Isaac Davis, I'm picking Brody Kozlowski every day and twice on Sunday. I love Brody Kozlowski, back-to-back 6A player of the year here in the state of Utah, Mr. Basketball this past year, if I recall correctly, out of Corner Canyon High School. And Brody Kozlowski's skill set fits much better with what I believe and what Kevin Young has said will be his style as BYU basketball's head coach. He is going to go for more of a positionless type game where it's going to be 4 or 5 out. And what that means is 4 or 5 guys on the perimeter of the floor, interchanging, running screens off of one another, pick and rolls, all that stuff. And he said as much on the Field of 68 podcast last night. I would encourage you to go check it out. Jeff Goodman had a great chat with Kevin Young. I watched it. I was very entertained by the way that Kevin Young operates, just the way he answered the questions. And he said that we're going to play a 5-out style. He said my best times as an NBA coach have been when I've had a rim rolling center. Who does that sound like? Oh, he's some guy named Keba Keita. Yeah, still feeling very good vibes on that front, by the way. I'll just put that out there right now. But he said, I've had my best success with a rim rolling 5 who can really thrive in the pick and roll, a point guard who can distribute it, and then shooters around that. Well, that seems tailor-made to fit what BYU has on the roster right now. keeping in mind that if you get Keba Keita in the mix, him and Fousseyni Traore are those two bigs who are going to be your rim rollers and going to the rim. Whereas you have Dallin Hall, who's proven to be quite adept distributor. Also have Dawson Baker potentially there to be as a pick and roll guy. And then guys like a Trev Vanell on the outside, Noah Waterman. You go around that roster, a bunch of these guys have proven that they can step up in big moments and hit big shots on the perimeter, and you kick that ball out to them, and that gives them that opportunity to do that. And that's why I believe that Brody Kozlowski is a much better fit for the BYU basketball program than Isaac Davis. And it's nothing against Isaac. Trust me, I was absolutely enthralled with the way he played the game of basketball. He is a dude who's just an absolute beast on the hardwoods. And frankly, there's another thought in my mind. If any of you watched his high school highlights from I think it was one season. I think he only played one season of high school football. That dude was absolutely dominant on the football field. So he's an elite athlete. There's no doubt about that about Isaac Davis, but his skill set, where he is more of a down in the post type player, he's not necessarily maybe as adept at running the pick and roll, being a rim roller that BYU envisions needing in Kevin Young's system. So therefore, you cut bait right now and you move forward. So we'll see what happens. And I wish Isaac nothing but the best as he moves forward with his career. I would hope that he goes to Utah State and absolutely kills it. The nice part about going to Utah State right now for him is it's a new head coach there at Utah State, a new system being implemented, and it's essentially a clean slate. And he gets to go in there, prove himself with the Aggies, and show what he's capable of. And I guarantee if BYU and Utah State get together at any point in the near-term future while Isaac is on the roster at Utah State, you can guarantee he's going to have that game circled and he'll be wanting nothing more than to stick it to BYU. And I can understand that. I absolutely would embrace him having that mentality. But once again, I'm not all that concerned with the loss of Isaac Davis, simply because I think Brody Kozlowski is a much better fit, and he's a better player in my mind. And that is my personal opinion. So any of you who are connected to Isaac Davis, I'm not trying to put the kid down. Let me be very honest about that. I think it was an unfortunate situation that has played out the way it has, and he will obviously have to go and find his own path at Utah State. And by the way, who's to say that down the road, if he becomes this dominant force at Utah State and all of a sudden decides to enter the transfer portal and BYU, decides, hey, remember when we talked to you back then? How about we throw you some NIL money your way and come back down to Provo and live your dream of playing for the BYU Cougars? I'm not saying that's out of the realm of possibility. It's very much a thing in college basketball these days. Everybody's a free agent, for lack of a better term, every single year. And if you prove yourself capable and you become the dominant force some envision that Isaac could be, there's no reason to think that BYU couldn't circle back at some point and bring him in if he is open to that. All right. So coming up next, I want to talk a little bit more about what Kevin Young had to say about his role as head coach of the BYU basketball program to Jeff Goodman. I thought it was some of the most insightful comments we've heard from BYU basketball's new head coach since he took the job. He frankly has not talked a lot on the record. I can tell you he's done a lot of work behind the scenes on doing what he's doing as BYU's head coach. But in terms of speaking to folks in the media, he's not done a ton of that. So I thought it was a lot of good intel on that. And we'll dig into that coming up next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Now, eBay Motors is here for you guys to help you out with your vehicle. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts, your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, or you get your money back. It's simple as that, my friends, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, and all the parts that you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Of course, that is a key, some situations here. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Once again, keep your ride or die alive today, once again, at ebaymotors.com. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Want to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, and check out Locked On Sports Today. Are you sick of watching ESPN or Fox Sports and hearing all the talking heads shouting at each other and having to turn on the volume? Well, Locked On Sports Today is here for you. It's a 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every single day to give you all the biggest stories without all the screaming on the other networks. Brings you all the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we like to say often, your team every day. All right. So Kevin Young, once again, was on the Field of 68 podcast. And I thought it was very insightful to hear him say that he wants to play a fast, up-tempo style, 5 out, very much an NBA-esque model. And that should be enticing to you as a BYU fan, because that's essentially what BYU was running a year ago with Mark Pope. The thing about it is BYU felt like they needed to find a unique way to attack opposing teams in the Big 12. And the way that they did that was to play a 4 or 5 man out alignment and shoot a high level of threes. Now, am I expecting BYU to hoist up 30 plus threes again next season? Maybe not as many as that, but I still think that Kevin Young is going to emphasize the three-pointer. It's in vogue in the NBA, and the trickle-down effect, especially with him coming down from the NBA level, is going to be that the three-pointer is still going to be an absolutely critical part of BYU's offense. But more importantly, he's talking about wanting to have a 4 or 5 out alignment with a rim rolling big with elite shooters and a true point guard. Like, you look at that, and that's exactly what I envision BYU and every basketball program wants to have. But Kevin Young is looking at the roster. He's got a true point guard in Dallin Hall. I don't have any qualms in saying that. Getting Dallin Hall back on this roster, absolutely massive for him. If Dawson Baker can get to full health, and he said that he had surgery on his foot as well as a cleanup procedure on his knee, if he's back to full health at any point, he is capable of being a distributor as well. And he's got elite size. What is it, 6'8" or whatever he is, Dawson Baker. So I like that. And also, if you can find a guy in the transfer portal, Keba Keita, once again, as a rim rolling big, because that's what Keba Keita's chief strength is. It's going to the rim. Even better than I think what Fousseyni Traore would be. And I don't think Fous is slouched by any means on that side of the basketball. So I like the style that Kevin Young laid out for Jeff Goodman, and I think it's exactly what BYU's roster is built for right now. And also, Kevin Young will have to obviously bolster that a little bit with some of the transfer portal additions. A couple of you have asked on our Locked On Cougars Insider group, what is the status with regard to filling out the roster, Jake? I'm just going to echo something that Robbie McCombs said not too long ago in an article he did for Vanquish the Foe, because it's absolutely true. There is a lot of work going on behind the scenes for BYU. When guys sign, if they sign, that's all yet to be determined. But if you're looking more at European guys, if you want to bring over a guy from Europe to play for the BYU basketball program, that can take until midsummer before they ultimately decide to go to a college like BYU and then ultimately sign with the Cougars. So you could be waiting potentially until July for a guy if you're looking that realm. And also, it's every guy has their own preferred style in the transfer portal, how they're going to handle things. Do they want to handle it very quietly and then have the school announce that they've signed with the university? That happens. There's other guys who like to talk about every single school they've heard from here to Timbuktu on social media, and they make it very vocal and very prominent about how they're going to operate. But the bigger thing is, in talking about his personality for Kevin Young, it says he's a quote, and this is a quote I saw, and I heard it with my own. He said, "I'm a straight shooter, direct. I say it how it is." He says it's been a big key of how he's had success at the NBA level. That's not a bad thing to have, honestly. Guys who are not going to essentially BS you and just tell you exactly what they think. And I'm going to also go kind of circle back to the conversation we had just barely about Isaac Davis. I would imagine that Kevin Young laid it out exactly what he envisions for Isaac if he enrolls at BYU, and this is what it's going to be. And like I said, whoever the decision was made in terms of the Davis family saying, you know what, let's go find something better for you, Isaac, or the BYU essentially saying, probably better suited for you to find another opportunity for yourself. It doesn't matter. I appreciate that Kevin Young is not going to shoot. I try to mix two metaphors. He's not going to shoot. Man, I'm screwing it up. He's not going to beat around the bush. He's going to shoot you straight. Does that make sense? Okay, so yeah, there you go. He's not going to mince words and give you a bunch of fluff. He's just going to lay it out. And that's the one thing I noticed from his introductory press conference and my conversation with him that we put on this podcast is he's very direct. He's very succinct in his answers, but they've all got a lot of intel in them if you want to parse the words and essentially look into them. So I can appreciate the way that Kevin is operating things here at BYU. And frankly, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air because I love Mark Pope, but he can get really wordy and really verbose at times without saying a lot. I can actually appreciate the fact that Kevin Young's like, you know what? This is how it is. This is it. And this is what it's going to be. And I can appreciate that. So we'll see what happens. I think that the other situation is in terms of filling out his staff. that could also take some time because if you're dealing in most rumors out there, and I can substantiate them because I've heard them myself, is that he's looking at bringing in an NBA assistant or some NBA coaches that he's got affiliation with and potentially somebody over from Europe. Well, guess what? They're probably on staffs or have been on staffs that might still be playing in the NBA or overseas in the Euro League. That is going to take time for them to obviously unentangle themselves from their obligations as coaches for those various teams, and then ultimately go through the interview, hiring process, and all that, get signed, sealed, and delivered, and announced by BYU. So I had somebody tell me last week, keep an eye out for this coming week with regards to some coaching news. But the fact that we've made it to midweek and I haven't heard anything at this point leads me to believe that something popped up in the hiring process, a little bit of a roadblock, as it were, for BYU, and it may have slowed down the process. But rest assured that Kevin Young's not sleeping on the job. Quite the contrary. He is locked in and he's going after it. People that talk about him, I'm going to echo what I've said on this podcast previously. They just scream from the rooftops about how impressed they are with the way that Kevin Young is going about things here with the BYU basketball program. They are very impressed about what he has got envisioned for himself. And he said in that interview with the Phil 68, kind of substantiating what I had said, is that there was an opportunity for him with the Brooklyn Nets. And he said, I was never formally offered the job, but Jeff Goodman essentially laid out there. And it's what I said, is that if he wanted that job in Brooklyn, he could have had it. And the family situation being what it was, there was a decision made. He said, speaking of Kevin Young and his wife, that they decided, you know what, let's look at other opportunities. And he said the only college program that really enticed us was BYU. And that's really intriguing to hear because I'll say it again. I did not have him on my short list of potential replacements for Mark Pope, but everything I've heard, everything I've seen with my own eyes, and everything that Kevin Young is doing right now, it seems like he's got a grand vision for BYU basketball, and he's going about executing it at a very, very high level so far. So I think the hire Brandon Dunson has been a home run. You guys know, if you're everydayers here on this podcast, you know how much mad respect I have for Chris Burgess. I think he's an absolute perfect fit because of his familiarity with BYU and obviously being able to fill in some of the cracks of what Kevin and or Brandon might not understand about how BYU operates with certain things, and his familiarity with the roster, having recruited the vast majority of the guys still on the roster today. So I cannot say enough good things about the way that Kevin Young is doing what he's doing for the BYU basketball program. And a lot of times, and I've had this conversation with some of you in our Locked On Cougars Insider group, a lot of times coaching changes can set programs back. And it's a routine thing. A coach leaves, guess what? You lose momentum and you kind of fall back in the pack. BYU, crazily enough, I think they may have pushed themselves even further, pushed themselves ahead versus falling back. And I know that's crazy to say because Kevin Young hasn't even coached a game yet, but the way that he has gone about things at BYU, I got to say, I'm very, very impressed with the way he is operating it right now. All right, we will finish out today's show with some of your questions. Our Locked On Cougars Insider responded to my clarion call last night to get some questions. May not get to all of them on today's show, but one in particular, a call for what I would believe the top 3 things that BYU football needs to do to be more successful in the Big 12. We'll talk about that next as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. All right, game off for a moment here. We're stepping aside from the podcast. We're going to pause. We're going to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know you're sick of it, hearing about it. Flag on the play. Jake, you've already talked about this enough. Stop talking about it. Well, I can't. We got to talk more about it. Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments and have fun while you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. You can get things like unique stickers. You can trade with your friends to complete big albums for big prizes. They have cool new playing pieces to play on all the different boards that Monopoly Go offers you. And the best part is if you want to turn heel and become the enemy, you have hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you go about smashing their buildings or heisting their vaults. That's the best part about this. Monopoly Go has got a new and exciting feel every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton of them have unique mini games like digging for treasure or playing on a robot pachinko machine to cash in. There's always new timed events to help you win big, massive multipliers for everything you win and rent frenzies to just cash in across the board. There's always something new and fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Once again, it's free now on Google Play or the App Store. And let's get back to it. It's time to game on. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Yahoo Finance. Now, Yahoo is here for you guys to help you guys out with regards to your money. Now, all of us at some level are worried about our money. It wouldn't be a place if you could see all. It wouldn't be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place. Well, Yahoo Finance is that answer for you guys. You can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to execute and tend to your entire profile with confidence. That's what Yahoo Finance offers to you guys. Y'all want to be better when it comes to your money, and I'm no different. I've got my 401ks out there. I've got my retirement accounts. I want to be able to execute them. And when I get to retirement age, I want to be able to retire. That's the best part about that. So for 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor, and they want to be that for you if you're not already working with them. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance as a neophyte like me, for a lot of us, Yahoo Finance gives you the tools and data you need in one place. They are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. So the community, over 90 million users each month, why shouldn't you be working with them as well? It is the way to help you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, and that's yahoofinance.com. They are the #1 financial destination. That's yahoofinance.com. One more time, yahoofinance.com. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us. All right, I want to encourage you guys, if you haven't done so already, please sign up for our Locked On Cougars Insider group. It's a great way to interact with the show. We've got dozens of you who are with us every single day, and the best part is the updates I'm sending out come to you in the form of a text message. You fire back with a text message, I see it instantaneously. It's a fun way to interact with the show. And if you want to, we're going to get to some questions from our Locked On Cougars Insider group. The way to get access to that is to join us. It's a 14-day free trial, just $4.99, $5 roughly a month after that. If you want to sign up, click the link in the show notes below, wherever you're watching and or listening to this, and join us. It's been a really, really fun thing that we've had going for, I think, 4 or 5 months now. And appreciate all of you who have been in there from the get-go. And obviously would love to see many more of you join us as well. All right. First question that we're going to answer, and this may take up a lot of time, so we'll see if I get to other questions, but Taylor had a great question here. Says, Jake, give me the top 3 things you would do to quote unquote fix. I said, I'm not sure it's the right word, the BYU football program. I have so much confidence in basketball, but have next to nothing in football right now. It's a great question, Taylor. So 3 things to fix BYU football. Well, number 1, I wouldn't have let the recruiting situation for BYU's defense get as bad as it was. Now, that's obviously hindsight is 2020. I get all that. But the situation is you got to give Jay Hill the latitude and the time to build up this BYU defense. He is a proven coach. When you give him the time and the resources, he's going to put a good defense on the field. And that's what I expect for BYU. But it may not come to full fruition this season. So give Jay Hill the time he needs to build out this defense. Now, obviously, the Big 12 level, there's not a lot of patience, and I can understand that. I think BYU is going to be a little more patient than a lot of programs would be with Kalani Sitake, Aaron Roderick, and Jay Hill. I don't hate to break it to you guys. If any of you are quote-unquote haters of any of the 3 of them, BYU is not that hasty. At least their history suggests they're not that hasty in cutting bait and letting them go. But I believe that Jay Hill, given the time and the resources, he is going to make BYU's defense a strength of this program when it's been an absolutely crippling weakness the last few seasons. And it was a weakness last year, but I think Jay was essentially had one hand tied behind his back because of the recruiting that just fell by the wayside in many respects from the BYU previous staff. And that's, I know that it falls back on Kalani Sitake, so spare me the comments on that. I get all that, but give Jay Hill the opportunity. I think you will see an improved defense this year for BYU, but I don't think it's going to be near what BYU aspires to have it being in the future. But I do believe the defense will be a big key, and it'll be an improved product, which will help BYU in the Big 12 this fall. Number 2, get steady quarterback play. I'm not saying star level quarterback play. Get steady quarterback play. Whether it's Jake Retzloff, whether it's Gary Bohannon, if it's McKay Hillstead can come in and take the world by storm and end up as QB1 for BYU, I don't care who it is. I just want a steady quarterback at the position. It was anything but steady last year for multiple games. And that's part of it due to injury for a guy like Keaton Slovis. Jake Retzloff, obviously 0-4 is the starter after Slovis got injured. And There's a lot of conjecture there, but I just want to see steady quarterback play. With the weapons that BYU has on offense, particularly at the wide receiver and tight end positions, all you really need in my mind is for one of these quarterbacks to essentially prove they can get the ball into the hands of the BYU's playmakers and let them make plays. You don't necessarily need Zach Wilson out there. You don't need Steve Young out there this year for BYU. Let other guys carry the load. Number 3 is related to that. Number 3, got to get the run game going. If BYU can avoid having what was projecting for 5 or 6 games last year as the worst rushing output in like 70 or 80 years, they can avoid that, and I believe that they will, because Connor Pay essentially said as much on yesterday's podcast. For those of you who are everydayers, if you didn't go back and listen to it, he knows and understands the BYU's rushing attacks got to be much better, and the offensive line and the running backs have got to be a big key of any success BYU has this year. If BYU can get back to running the football like they were when Tyler Algier was here for the Cougars, going back to Jamal Williams, the Harvey Unga era, like there have been some really, really elite rushing attacks for BYU in the past 2 decades or so. And I think if BYU gets back to running the football to any significant level, that's going to raise BYU's level of play and their overall prospects for this season. And I know that's asking a lot because the offensive line was bad for long stretches of last season. But I think Connor Pay, he is absolutely hell-bent on making sure that the offensive line does not have the performance it had a year ago. He is a senior leader. You heard him talk about it in yesterday's podcast. He's essentially kind of filling in as a GA right now. He's taken a lot on himself to make sure this offensive line improves. And I think that alone, with what I believe is a star in the making in LJ Martin at running back, I think that could really raise BYU's fortunes in the Big 12 Conference this season. So, maybe those are the 3 you're looking for, Taylor. Maybe they're not, but those are the 3 I could think of when I was answering that question. All right. Let's get out of here on a fun one here. Let's see what else we got here in the question. Oh, way too early football prediction. Josh Glenn. All right, Josh. I am going to be a broken record on this. 6-6. Until I see BYU do anything beyond that, I want to see him get 6 wins. Get to the bowl eligibility this year. I know that may be setting an artificially low bar. I get that, but I think the BYU, they understand what they're up against playing at the Power 4 level, and it's obviously they got beat up pretty hard last year, and they learned from that. Get to 6 wins this year. Anything beyond that, it's gravy for me. 6-6. So there you go. Does that make you happy? Does it make you sad? I don't know. It's just kind of where I stand. And then last thing here, if you were an avatar, the last airbender, what element would you be? This comes from Matt Moon. Now, Matt, let me be very clear. I don't watch like any, frankly, anime. I know that Avatar is one of the more famous and maybe the most legendary of the anime series out there. I got no clue what you're talking about, dude. What element would you be? I just guess like talking about elements like the earth, water, fire. Okay, if that's the case, give me water. Because water is the most powerful substance in the world. It's absolutely incredible what water can do. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's not. But I honestly, I don't know what Avatar is at all. Maybe I should get on that at some point, but I'm pretty busy, as most of you know. I'm a dad. I'm a father of 3. I got 2 essentially jobs. I do this in addition to my radio career, so it's pretty fun. But we'll go out on this as well. Andy sent this in as well. More of a statement. It's cool to see that Connor Pay is confident enough in the football program that it doesn't bother him the basketball program is getting a ton of attention the last few weeks. I agree with that, Andy. He understands that BYU football, they are going to have their lion's share of headlines soon enough. Obviously, training camp will be here before you know it. Even before that, we'll have media days down in Las Vegas for the Big 12 Conference. So I can understand that he's got that confidence level, and I think it's well-founded. So I appreciate the statement there, and I think you're right. I think that he understands that there's a time and a place, and BYU football will be back in the headlines and stealing a lot of the headlines soon enough. But right now, it's BYU basketball stealing a lot of the headlines, and for good reason. All right, there you go. That's what I got for you guys on this Wednesday. So thank you to all of you who submitted questions. I'll get to more of them on tomorrow's podcast. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? It just feels like every day there's something new out there. And a lot of you have said, Jake, I don't know how you come up with content every day. Good news is the BYU basketball program routinely delivering day in, day out, making my job pretty easy right here on the podcast. So thank you once again for making it your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us as well. And until tomorrow, my friends, have a great rest of your Wednesday right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.